Throughout almost all of 2025, home prices in Vancouver, those have been dropping. While in Victoria, the opposite has been true as home prices have been increasing throughout the year, but that might be starting to shift. Let's take a quick look at what's going on in the BC real estate market right now. Hey there, welcome back to Prairie Real Estate. My name is 𝗳𝗶𝗍 from Real Estate Agent in Regina, and that is my trusted assistant, 𝗳𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗍. This is my monthly Canadian real estate market update for a month of October 2025. We're focusing on the BC real estate market here. If you want videos for the rest of the country, I'll put the links in them in the description below. We cover all the prairies, Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces. But of course, this wouldn't be a Prairie real estate video without another one of my terrible bad dad jokes, and this one I got emailed to me from a viewer, so thank you very much for sending it. The story goes, well, I used to race snails, and, well, he wasn't winning very many races, so he removed his shell to make him more aerodynamic. All that happened is he became more sluggish. If you have a terrible joke I can put in a future video, put it in the comments below. Let's start by talking about the Victoria real estate market. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but there's some interesting trends and stats I want to dive into. So let's start off with home sales here. 550 homes sold, down versus last year, down versus the 5-year average, and we actually saw a fairly sizable difference versus the 5-year. But I think it's important to note two things. First off is that it's an increase from last month, and that historically doesn't happen. You can go through and look at previous years. We did see it happen last year as well. Last year actually a fairly busy September in comparison to recent. But if you look through the last few years here, you continue to see that August to September, that sales usually drop. So that's something to note. Yes, it's still one of the weakest Septembers Victoria's had in the last decade. In fact, going through it here, really, you have actually nothing even as close to as weak except for 2023. That's the only, I'm sorry, in 2022 here, that's the only 2 years where September was slower in the last decade. Now, if you're kind of trying to project things out for the Victoria real estate market, kind of based on where we're at so far in the year, looks like Victoria is going to get to about 7,000 homes sold in the year, which would put it past 2024, 2023, and 2022. Obviously, all those very slow years, more in line with 2018, 2019. Now, those weren't banger years either, but maybe what we would call a little bit more normal. Now let's take a look at new listings. A big jump month over month in new listings. That is actually fairly typical for Victoria. Just again, look at previous years here. Last year, real sizable jump. Year before that, fairly sizable. 2022, big jump. 2021, not as big, but still a jump. 2020 is the unusual one, was actually a decline there. 2019, 2018, 2017 basically equal, and 2016 a little drop. So for the most part, you generally see an increase in new listings this time of year. Just that kind of fall spurt of new listings come to the market. So for your buyer, this is kind of some good news. You got a little more choice that's come to the market this past month. Looking at things year to date here, you can see almost 13,000 new listings so far this year. I'd say it's a pretty much guaranteed they're going to get that 14,500 they had last year, which was well above any previous years. Victoria is really interesting though. You look at it, and it's been really, really consistent for essentially the past decade. 12,000, 12,000, 12,000, 12,000. Like it just continues. Roughly 12,000 new listings every single year. Doesn't really matter where the market was up or down. That's pretty consistent there. So the 14,000 last year and likely 14,000 this year, that's definitely an outlier. Now let's talk about active listings, because if you're out shopping, you're going to want to have choice, and you definitely do right now. Almost 3,700 active listings, well above the 5-year average. And actually, you can see that we've been doing a little bit, although very minor, trend down over the last couple of months, down from roughly 58% up down to 56, and we picked back up to 60. But really, you can say it's been about 60% up versus the 5-year all year. Looking year over year, this is one of the smaller year over year increases. So again, that hasn't been much outside of the range, that 11, 12, 13%. So 10% just a little on the low end of that range. But looking at previous years, you can see 3,600 active listings, nothing really even close. Last year, okay, 3,400 roughly. But then you continue on down the years, 2,600, 2,200, 1,200, or sorry, 1,100 active listings, almost 1,200 active listings in 2021. And then you pick back up, obviously in 2020, 2019, but still like no years in the last decade where you've seen over 3,600 active listings this time of year in Victoria. And now let's take a quick look at the market balance metrics: months of inventory, sales to new listing, and sales to active listing ratio. see if we can dig into anything there. Starting off with months of inventory, you can see we started the year at about 5.5, little bit of a drop off through March, April, when it was a busier spring-ish market. And then it's essentially trending up ever since then. And right now we had 6.9 last month, 6.7 this month. That was mainly driven by a fairly strong month of sales this past month, but still we're in buyer's market territory right now in Victoria for months of inventory. Now let's look at the sales to new listing ratio. Starting the year at 35, picked up a little bit through the spring, was actually trending up here up until the last couple of months. So it looks like things peaked out here in July. I don't expect changing going above that for the remainder of the year. So it looks like we're going to be on a downward slide, which is kind of typical this year. We are at the part where market cools off, but you can see we did trend close, somewhat middle of a balanced market there. And now we're trending back down and officially into a buyer's market according to the sales to new listing ratio. Now take a look at sales active listing ratio. So again, start the year slower, picks back up through the spring. And now we were trending down actually. And then we saw just a small bump again, primarily because we had a fairly strong month for sales there. That's why you see that. Now, 1 month is never going to make a trend. Maybe it's the start of a trend. I don't think so. I think this is more just going to be kind of a one-off here. But we did see a tick up from 14 months to 15. So the higher the number, that means it's a more active and busy market here. If you compare it though versus any other previous year in essentially the last better part of a decade here, you can see we've never been as low as 15 here on this ratio. So very much the slowest market, or as you could say, the strongest buyer's market Victoria's had when it comes to sales to active listing ratio in the last decade. I'm going to tell you a real quick story here. I just sat down the other day with a young couple getting ready to buy their first home. They actually moved from Vancouver to Regina because they can afford to buy a house here. They're never going to be able to afford to buy a house in Vancouver, and they're super excited to get started. And I am excited to be their agent, and I would love to be your agent as well if you're looking at buying a house in Regina. But if you're not in Regina, I can still help you out because I've got a great network of agents across the entire country. If you look in the description of this video, down there's going to be a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a call. Looking at prices here, we started the year $870,000 in Victoria, peaked up $800,000 and almost $900,000 we got to in April, and it's been trending down. We're at $877,000, small month over month decrease. That's kind of typical this time of year. Look, previous years, same type of trend. We started the year up well over 3%, got almost 4% year over year. We're still up 1.5% year over year. So yes, home prices all year long in Victoria have been up year over year. The question's going to be, do we get to where we ended the year last year? Last year price ended at $869. Get your minds out of the gutter, $1,000. I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation. We'll get awfully close to that $869,000. I'm not sure we're going to drop below that or not this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And now I got a favor to ask for you. Actually, well, two here basically. First, if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to Ball Prairie Real Estate. And then in the comments section, I want you to answer basically 3 questions for me. 1, do you want me to add another city to the BC market update here? Let me know which one in the comments below, and I'll see if I can make that happen. And then I want you to make 2 predictions. 1, how low will Vancouver home prices be at the end of 2025? And will we see a year-over-year price decline in Victoria, or will Victoria end the year still up year over year? Let's take a look at what's going on in Vancouver now, where home prices have been decreasing all year long. And nothing I'm seeing in the stats right now gives me an indication that's going to change anytime soon, but let's dive into it. Now, I'm sure some people are saying, look, sales increased year over year. Vancouver real estate market is back. Yeah, maybe we're seeing some signs of some life here, but it's, coming off of the slowest months ever. You can see early in the year, we had some really significant year over year declines, and from an already very slow year last year, we've now had 2 months in a row where we've had sales increases, albeit relatively small, and again, versus a very slow year. Now, looking at the month of September, you can see, obviously, last year was slower, 2022 was slower, and 2018 was slower. So in the last decade, this is still the 4th slowest month for home sales, but it's not the worst. So I guess there's a little bit of positive news there. And if you're out shopping for homes in Vancouver, well, you saw a big jump in new listings month over month. Now that is fairly typical. We'll go through the stats here and you can see it here. So, basically a 2,300 home increase in new listings, up versus last year, and up versus the 5 average. Now, if you look at the previous month, that was the first time all year we had a drop in new listings. So That was short-lived. You can go through basically every year, and a 1,500 to 2,000 home increase in terms of a jump in new listings is fairly typical. So don't look at the month-on-month stats and say, oh my God, look at this wave of new listings. That's typical. And looking at total new listings for the year, looking like we're going to get about 62, 63,000 new listings throughout the year. So that's going to put us above last year, way above 2023, way above 2022, kind of puts us in line with 2021 numbers, of course, not 2021 sales numbers. So that'll be really interesting. If we cross that 60,000 barrier, that's a pretty significant one because, again, you look through the years here in the last decade, only in 2021 did we have that more than 60,000 new listings in a year. And again, way more sales in 2021 than we're going to have this year. 17,000 active listings. Good news if you're a buyer, and that is by far the most active listings for the month of September that we've got here again in the last decade. Like nothing's even close. Last year, big jump in new listings, about 15,000 active listings. Nothing's even close to 17,000 active listings. So good news for buyers right there. Now, when I'm talking with agents, I've been hearing this all year long, is that, yeah, there's a lot of what they're calling crap inventory out there, overpriced stuff that isn't really desirable, that for the most part, buyers that are looking for single family homes are still really struggling to find what they're looking for at a price point that they want. So just something I'm hearing continuously from agents in Vancouver. Now, looking at market balance, none of these stats are probably going to be surprising to you. We'll start off with months of inventory, and at 9.1 months of inventory, that's the highest in Canada for any city that I keep track of, with really nothing close. Like Toronto isn't even anywhere close to this. And you can see, again, looking through the years, there isn't 9 months of inventory, not only at any point in September. The only time we got more than 9 months of inventory, 2019, looks like January and February here, we had 10 months of inventory. That's the only time we've had a stronger so-called buyer's market based on months of inventory. Taking a look at sales to new listing ratio, looking at it here at one point here, July and August, we tipped into balanced market territory. So only 2 months there. The rest of the time, we've been in solid buyer's market territory in Vancouver. Very similar to the market conditions that we had last year and fairly similar to 2023. And then you can look here, 2022, 2021, 2020, like significantly higher, obviously much tighter conditions there. Basically, we're back to about that 2018 time frame in terms of market conditions, and we all know how much slower the Vancouver real estate market was in 2018 as well. And looking at sales to active listing ratio here, again, solid buyer's market territory. That's part of why we're seeing prices trending down. We've been now in that low teens, closing in on single digits for this metric. That would be crazy, again, to get to single digits. I don't have a single month in the last almost 10 years that I've got recorded here of single digits for sales to active listing ratio in Vancouver. So that'll be interesting if we end up getting there. I'm going to have to go back through the history books and see when the last time we had a sales to active listing ratio in Vancouver in the single digits. Looking at home prices here to start the year, with 2 months in a row where there was year-over-year price increases, although basically nothing year-over-year. And then since then, it's been year-over-year price declines every single month. And we saw that actually accelerating up until 2 months ago. Basically, we peaked out in terms of price depreciation at 3.8% 2 months ago, and then last month down 3%. So 1 month doesn't make a trend. It can be the start of one. We'll have to see if this is an outlier or if we see maybe price depreciation slow down or not. We're gonna have to wait and see. With sales being a little bit better, I would say that's a possibility, but it's not like we've seen a big month in sales. So we're gonna kind of have to wait this one out and see. We're down essentially, we're about $30,000 in Vancouver since the start of the year, down about $40,000 year over year. And going in terms of where prices peaked out in Vancouver in April of 2022 at $1.262 million. So obviously we're down about $120,000 in Vancouver since that time frame. I want to hear from you guys now. First, should I add a city to this update? And if so, let me know which city would you like me to cover. I'll see if I can make that happen for you. And then I want you to put some predictions in the comments section. How low will home prices drop in Vancouver? Where are we going to end? What's that benchmark price going to be by the end of this year? And will home prices in Victoria see a year-over-year decline, or will they be up just slightly when we end the year? Let me know in the comments section. Done.